a sacred space to leave behind the outside world for an hour and to become present. So please close your eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling and exhaling, if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them pass. Like watching a car pass by on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply. Without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Oh, we have a few more hellos, Harry and Karen and Stephanie, Zoom user, who I don't know who that is. Oh, Joanne, there we go. And we have Marianne. So today, as we get started, so the Talmud in a section talking about loving kindness or Chesed, it lists comforting the bereaved as a way to emulate the divine. So one of the trends that I've heard about is that attending a Shiva or the memorial service that takes place for 7 days after someone dies, that tends to be that has been going down in COVID. And sometimes, they've been by Zoom, but it seems like there's a little bit less attendance. So I'm just curious, when you are deciding whether you're going to go to a funeral or to a Shiva service or offering comfort to the bereaved, like how do you decide what it is you're going to do? How close to the person do you feel personally? I mean, the tradition has things to say, but just personally, I'm curious, how do you decide when you're going to go in person or send a card or call or not do anything? So I see Bonnie and I see Joanne.
So I was founding head of the Jewish Day School in Los Gatos, and one of my teachers who had also taught religious Hebrew school with me before I came back to be head passed away at the beginning of COVID. And not only was she one of my teachers, but when I was teaching previously, I had her daughter in my second grade Hebrew class. Mm-hmm. And so it was a family that I've known. She was past president of the synagogue. I went to the physical funeral, and then there was really some lovely Shiva opportunities where people could share. Mm-hmm. And she was just one of the best. She was a developmental kindergarten teacher for me, a Gesher teacher. And she was one of the best teachers I'd ever had and ever worked with. And she didn't have a college education. And that was always a problem for her. And I kept saying, it doesn't matter. You are just an amazing teacher. and the kids adore you. I've never seen a teacher spend so much time prepping. So in that case, I went, and everything else I have done on Zoom.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Joanne, you had your, looks like you're on
Yes.
the move. Is this a good time to talk, or you want me to come back?
No, it's fine. I had to refrigerate something. I mean, and like I've been crazy today because I accidentally fell asleep in the afternoon, and my voice teacher was calling me, and I think that woke me up. So I had a shortened lesson. But anyway, yeah, my good friend, one of my best friend's fathers passed away, so I did go to the funeral. It was outdoors, and a lot of people have been doing this, at least around here where I live, been doing like graveside because it's outdoors, so it's safer. And most of us wore masks anyway. And then I came to the her Shiva house, and yeah, I wore a mask, and we're all vaccinated. I mean, she is, I am, and the other person who was sitting not right next to me, but a chair over. And, so I feel comfortable with that. And then the rabbi emeritus of my synagogue, who was never my rabbi, because he retired before I joined, and we had somebody else. His funeral, I think I watched on Zoom, and I did not pay a shiva call because I felt like I'm not close to him, and a lot of other people are. And then there was a woman whose sister passed away, and she's on the board of directors, and so am I. So I didn't go to the funeral, but I paid a shiva call. And I guess I think it's degrees of separation, but if that people are vaccinated in any case, and then you're vaccinated and boosted, and you're wearing a mask, I feel like it's safe enough. And of course, the outdoor.
Thanks, Joanne. I think
Okay.
we get the picture. So yeah, so a couple of things that like the COVID makes things a little bit more complicated, but if we just sort of put those issues aside, I'm more like Joanne and Bonnie mentioned, some people are really close to, and those are kind of the no-brainers. And then it's something like, okay, well, a sister of someone I'm on board with. And, so how far out do you go? If it's someone you took a class with once at the shul, is it the relative of someone, a distant relative of someone you know a little bit? I mean, what's your kind of rule? And it's maybe you don't have a rule of thumb, but I'm just kind of curious how you go through that process of should I make a shiva call? Yeah, Irene.
I took a Torah study class a long time ago where people talked about how much it meant to them to have people come. And ever since then, if I've ever even heard of the person, I really try to go. It's always a big question because the temple sends notices about people that I have never heard of, and I never know whether it's appropriate to go or not, but I don't usually go if I've never even heard of them. But I really try to go, even if it's someone I've heard of just a little bit.
Great, thank you, Irene. Christo.
We had somebody from a different synagogue about 2.5-hour drive north of us join us remotely for our services for Shabbat, sometimes our Musar meetings on Mondays. And her husband had passed away, so I didn't know them very well. But I didn't know the synagogue, said, this is my name, this is how I know her husband and her. This is my number. If they are comfortable, they're welcome to call me if it would help with her grieving. And I basically asked her, like, what can I do to help you heal from grief. And she actually, she texted me, which I was surprised, like, I need some space. Thank you so much. The email means a lot. Maybe after Shiva, maybe towards the end of Shaloshim, text would be fine, a short one. I said, understood. I'm asking first. I don't want to intrude. And after Shaloshim, she and I talked on the phone for a little bit. She said that meant a lot that you asked, because I wasn't able to really talk to anyone at all. And I told her, I understand. I might have felt the same way. That's why I wanted to ask first before doing something that might have caused your pain to increase. I didn't want that. And she and I have kept in touch a few times since then. But to her, asking what was best for her as a mourner and not assuming, she said that meant more than pretty much anything.
Thank you, Krista. What a lovely sentiment, because it is about comforting the bereaved. And you sort of asked, Irene shared with us that people, after she heard how much it meant for someone to go to Shiva calls, she really tries to go if there's any level of connection, but probably not for someone she's never heard of. So these are different ways of offering comfort. Karen, I see your hand.
I have been fortunate enough to always have instructions for the funeral and Shiva over the last 2 years, which are, it's either private, it's on Zoom through the shul, we will be live outdoors. And then if people are invited for the funeral or Shiva, then I make up my mind based on, just our relationship, who I know that's going to be there, that may or may not be vaccinated. But it's been fairly easy, because those who I've been very, very close to, like a father of a very dear friend who died, it was an outdoor funeral service, and the Shiva, the service was very small. And so I was there and I can hug her. We're vaccinated and boosted. And I could be there for Shiva. Many other people were on Zoom. And for others, I've attended a funeral or a Shiva on Zoom, especially, if I know the people, because that's what has been suggested.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, we'll hear from Carrie, and then we'll probably move on to our next topic.
Okay. When we lived up in New Hampshire, we had a mailman who was a dog lover, and I had dogs. And I've always tried to get close to our mailmen and women, if they're regulars. And out of the blue, he committed suicide.
Oh,
And I found out, the other mailman came up and told me and said, we thought you should know this. I guess they knew that we had a friendship, just a casual friendship, neighborly friendship with the dogs and everything. So I went to his funeral. This was pre-COVID. And I didn't know anybody except a few of the mail people. And they all said that they were really surprised and happy. I mean, that it felt good to them for me to be there. They appreciated that, and it felt good for me to do that. And I that he wasn't Jewish, so there was no Shiva, but I've been to a few funerals of people that were related to me in a service context. And it just felt like the right thing to do, to pay my respects, because they were important to me in one way or the other. So.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for sharing that. And there's so much, there's so much good we can do just by showing up, to offer comfort. So let's go a little bit deeper here, because all right, I'm going to skip the what am I looking for here? Here we go. So I wanted to kind of look at this teaching, the full teaching, which is that there are 4 ways to practice loving kindness as a way of kind of emulating the divine: visiting the sick, clothing the naked, comforting the bereaved, and burying the dead. And each one of these has like a little story from the Torah that goes with it. Adam and Eve were naked, and God provided clothes, and God buried Moses, and God comforted Isaac after Sarah's death. And God, I'm blanking on who visiting the sick was, but there's a story to go with that as well. But
That was Abraham.
Oh yes, that's right. That was Abraham. After the circumcision. So, thank you, Joanne. So we may or may not, we may have different ideas about the divinity and what it might mean to emulate the divinity. But I'm wondering, like, what strikes you about this list, and is that like a criteria that you would use? Oh yeah, well, if this is kind of some way that God shows up in the world, I'll give this a shot too. I'm just putting this in the chat now. Janet, I think I heard your voice.
Yeah. I'm struck by the fact that our traditions are very different from some other cultures. In my former husband's family, they tended to stay away from funerals. They would send flowers instead. They would do everything possible to avoid that, and they would not visit the sick. And when my first husband, when his mother died, they had no funeral. There was no calling, and they were very private people, and they did not want attention. And Judaism doesn't allow for that. But what about when people are private and really don't want that?
Well, I guess, are you asking about like how does Judaism handle those circumstances?
Yes, and yeah. And how do we respect when somebody from another culture has very different traditions?
Yeah. I mean, I think in my experience, a lot of that just gets, like, even like in the old days, like prior to the 19th century, like the local rabbi had a lot of sway over what was required or not required. And the rabbi would, know the people involved and would sort of make rulings according to kind of what best served the community. And I think just from a practical standpoint, most people's wishes get met, one way or another within, certainly the liberal Jewish community today for what they would like. And if they don't want to have a shiva, or they don't want to have a war, that's their call. That's their call to do. And it's, I think in general, when it comes to other cultures, just trying to have kavod and, understand, because our commandment is to comfort the bereaved. And I think as Christo pointed out, it's like, well, sometimes we need to ask what would be comfortable to them. And, showing up with a dish of lasagna, can go a long way in a lot of circumstances for someone. But if that's really going to upset someone or make them feel like their privacy has been invaded, then it's not, it might not be the right thing to do, even if it's well meant. What thoughts about this kind of emulating the divine? Harry? Yeah.
Well, I think you just said it, emulating the divine. I think in a way we're God's ambassador to the world, to help the downtrodden, to comfort the sick, to clothe the naked, comfort the bereaved, burying the dead. If God was a person, if God can come down and do that, and he would do that. Instead, we're the people that we've been deputized in a way to do it. And so we're being godly. And this is our chance to be godly. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I like that. We're sort of being deputized to sort of do these things. Yes, Karen. Karen, did you have your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is an opportunity for me to bring in a comment from the end of last week's session, which is that the television show New Amsterdam, I don't know if anybody has watched that. Max is the head of hospital. And so it's his job to find out what is needed and to get that done. And that show and the writers have allowed us through Max to see how Chesed progresses, whether it's comforting the bereaved, it is somebody dies in the hospital, there's something, clothing the naked people who are homeless that come into the hospital. He tries to be the first one to do something. If he sees and he hears a need, he tries to address it. And if he's addressing it in a way that is not making a difference, not being received, he listens again, and he's able to change his kindness or whatever it is that he's doing to get it right. And I thought that was a really great example. The only way this does not fit Chesed is that he is the paid head of the hospital to do this, and there must be some type of rewards. But he's looking for what needs to be done, and he listens first. He does something, and then he listens again to see if he got it right. And it's all about caring for those who are in need. So if anyone's not seen the show and can watch it from the beginning, it's a great way to see Chesed in progress.
Thank you. I'll just, Marianne, I'll get to your question in just a sec, but I just want to bounce this to the group. If you're getting paid for something, does that mean that there can't be Chesed, or where might Chesed come in, even if it's something that we're being paid for?
Well,
Yes.
well, I think it can still be chesed. I mean, like a rabbi's duty includes visiting the sick and presiding at funerals and burying the dead. And my rabbi is actually, he makes sure that grave is covered, like some people just like throw a little dirt on it and think they did it. He feels like, no, he has to make sure that, either there's enough people there, but he's usually the last one to finish shoveling and the casket is completely covered. So he does go beyond his job description, because I suppose no one would, I don't know if anybody would find it amiss if he didn't do that, but he does do that, and I believe he pays Shiva calls, though I don't really know. I'm trying to remember. I think he did, yeah.
Thank you, Joanne. I think what you said really resonated with me, and that was my thought, which is kind of going beyond what was required. And for this New Amsterdam, I'm sure there's lots of heads of hospitals who are just kind of, we have the patients, they come in, they come out, but these sort of extra steps of listening and other stuff, that's, I think, where the chesed comes into play. All right, Marianne, you've been very patient, so you're up.
So I think some things could be added to the list. I realize the list is very old, but I think Chesed may also be trying to take care of our earth, and also trying to reduce. I'm not saying I'm a vegetarian, because I'm not. I'm a carnivore, but trying to reduce the suffering of animals. There are lots of ways, I think, that are more than that list.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love that. This was sort of a one sort of formulation about, of chesed, but taking care of animals, I cannot remember the source, is explicitly considered chesed, because they generally can't reciprocate for what we do for them. And as someone who takes care of cats, there's definitely not, it is not an equal relationship. Let's just put it that way. They can dictate a lot. So thank you. Randy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think Chesed, it allows us to step out of being individual and material oriented. I'm thinking how to say it. Underneath Chesed, maybe it's recognizing the value of all human beings. And if you don't do that, it's like, well, you can do something materially, but if that part is missing, if you don't value the other person, and in valuing, it can even be in regard to someone that's passed away, but there is your value as a human being. You're more weighty when an act of Chesed is done. There's something like in the universe that there's a greater weight to things than there was. I don't know quite how to say it. Maybe I can say it this way. I was walking in, there's a park by my house, and that while I am fairly well off in the park, there's a number, I never know who I might run into. And it was actually, when it was dark and I had thrown on some old work clothes, and I ran into this homeless guy, and I had this sort of marvelous interchange where I turned around and avoided him one time. I'll walk around and, to get my exercise in. And the next time I took the time to say hello, and I sort of gave him a fist bump and how are you? And he had this marvelous smile. And I don't know how to say it. There was a point of connectedness there. It just made me feel warm and good inside, in this most marvelous way. I don't know quite how to say it. And I recognize, well, this person, they probably have some significant, mental health and drug problems and other things. But I felt love for this person just as a person. And he was very, I could sense kindness. And it was sort of flowing back and forth. And I don't know quite how to say that, because often, somebody will ask you for something or to do something, or that's the point of your exchange. And I think there's so many people that the whole world would turn upside down if people gave value to other people. I almost was thinking, we have that other term, of awe of God, but there's a little bit of that sort of yireh or whatever with, I don't think you can have the one thing right unless you feel about others the same way. And I think that extends to animals and the whole creation and world as well, that there's something there, and it's something very lacking in human beings. And even if you have it a little bit, you can wake up in the morning and you gotta, it's not how we naturally are. It's such a great need. So that's all.
And it's thank you, Randy. And there's such beautiful opportunities for connection, and kind of, as you say, it's not always how we naturally are, but being able to just kind of go above and beyond, what we would normally do, even in very small ways, can have a huge impact on people and really lift someone up. Okay, so we're gonna go a little bit deeper, and right now I'm gonna, oh yes, Wendy, I see your hand, sorry.
Just real quick, I think being paid to do good can open up many opportunities for Chesed. when my husband became an attorney, and then we moved to a small town, and he was never going, he's going to do corporate law, not ever do criminal law. But when we moved to the small town, they said, you can't actually start what you're doing until you actually have some criminal cases. And so he was being paid, and this man had actually done the thing, and then in actually serving the community by working with this man, my husband discovered he had a family with children who were in great need. And so we gathered together people to help them. And this man saw that, and he never went back to his ways. And so you just never know. You have to be open, I think.
Wow, thank you. A beautiful story. So speaking of stories, I want to take a look at the book of Ruth. And so Ruth is one of the books of the Bible. And some of you may be familiar with the story to one degree or another. But it's about a woman, Naomi, who moves to Moab with her sons, and her sons marry two women who are from Moab, and then the sons die. And she goes back to Canaan, and the daughters, one of the daughters refuses to stay behind and goes with her, and wants to kind of be, considers her family and wants to stay with her and wants to be with her. And they arrive, and then Ruth, who's this woman who stayed with her, goes out to glean in the fields. And what that means is it was an ancient practice where people who didn't have money could just go and pick up like the grains and the things that sort of fell on the ground. You weren't supposed to go back and clean out like every kernel of wheat or barley. If something was kind of left on the bush or fell on the ground, it was left for people who needed more. So let me see. So Naomi is busy gleaning, and there's this guy, Boaz, who kind of singles her out and says, hey, I'll tell the men not to bother you and stay all day and glean. And he invites her to have a little bit of lunch and sends her home with like some extra grain. And so that's kind of the story up until this point. And now may I have a volunteer to read these sections that I've picked. I can't see everyone, so please feel free to just unmute.
Naomi asked, why are you so kind as to single me out when I am a foreigner? Boaz said in reply, I have been told of all that you did for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband. Ruth 2:10-11. Ruth told Naomi of the kindness of Boaz. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord who has not failed in his kindness to the living or to the dead. Ruth 2:20.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share, and then I'm going to cut and paste this into, it's going to take me just a second. Cut and paste this into the chat. And so sometimes the Hebrew says chesed, sometimes it uses other words for kindness. But I'm wondering, what do you notice about the role of kindness in this story that we've seen so far? Joanne. Joanne, you're on mute.
It's very important, actually, kindness. It's a big theme. I mean, one of the interpretations, and I wrote a Devar Torah on this, I gave a couple of times. So, the family that left Israel, left for Moab, they were wealthy, and it seems like they didn't want to share with their neighbors during the famine. And so maybe that's why the husband and the two sons died. but they were not kind and generous. But Ruth, who was a foreigner, but she still loved her mother-in-law enough and felt connected to her that she wanted to stay with her and follow the religion and do whatever she could for her to help her. So, sorry about that.
Well, we can
Sorry.
still hear you.
I'm on my phone anyway, but yeah, so it's very important. So Ruth is kind to Naomi, and Boaz is kind to Ruth, and above and beyond, and it's very important.
Yeah, so you're sort of mentioning a little bit of a chain of kindness that's involved. Thank you. Other thoughts or observations? How about the second part? Where it's like Naomi blessed her daughter-in-law. And who is Naomi crediting for the kindness?
God. I'm sorry, I have another comment.
Let's see if anyone else wants to comment.
All right, well, okay, it's not a
then we'll come back to you.
All right.
Just to see if anyone else will know. Okay, you're still up.
Okay, all right. So sorry, this is my Dvar Torah, but I've also read this. When Boaz goes down to his fields, he greets the worker with like, "May God bless you," or something like that. And I've read that that's a mark of a righteous person, to greet someone in that way, whereas some bosses would not be kind and would not be blessing their workers and might be cursing them. So that's another aspect of his kindness. He also gives her food to eat at the lunchtime or break time, and make sure that nobody harasses her. And so he really goes out of his way. He's an exemplar of kindness.
Thank you. So yeah, there's all kinds of kindness in this story. Yes, Bonnie.
Well, I think that what Naomi did was really very interesting. Yes, she appreciated Boaz, she appreciated her daughter, but more than that, she appreciated God. And that to me was really important, because it's really clear, I think, in this story, in the Ruth story, that it comes from God. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Great. So I'm hearing you're seeing sort of a clear connection. Can you say more about that? Like how it's coming from God?
Well, the way and this is my own theology, I think
Sure.
what we do, I hope that I'm in partnership with God. And which, by the way, is a real problem for me in dealing with part of the 12 steps, because I can't just turn it over. I need to do my job. And so I think that Naomi has done her job in being a role model. She was a role model for both daughters-in-law. One chose not to stay with her. The other one chose to stay with her because of, I think, the amount of love and respect that Naomi gave them. And she does this in partnership with God. She could have been this woman who said, my sons have died, and what have you done for me lately, God? But she doesn't. There's nowhere in Ruth that I remember reading where she is annoyed or angry that she's lost her sons, and here I've got these daughter-in-laws, and they're not, I didn't give birth to them. but she thanks God for Boaz. And I think she's thanking God for Ruth also.
Thank you. And that was well said. And I also wonder, you mentioned partnership. I also wonder if there's an element of the sort of emulating, that we were talking about earlier. That when we're emulating, and there's another reading I'm going to show right after we hear from Karen.
So Ruth was also showing a kindness not only to the dead, but to a family that she didn't grow up in. I think that makes it doubly recognizable or honorable. And in another way, although somewhat different, this makes me think of when Israel is at war and a soldier injures an enemy. The first thing an Israeli soldier wants to do is bring that enemy to a hospital to take care of the enemy, that we take care of our fallen. And here, Ruth's husband died and she went to show kindness to his family. And so I think that's the part that jumps us from kindness to chesed.
Beautiful. Yeah, these are all sort of above and beyond acts, which is what moves from kindness to chesed. I have a really lovely interpretation I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to head into our breakouts. I put it in the chat box here, as well as sharing it. Oops. Oh, I've done something bad. Thank God for undo. This is an interpretation from Tamara Cohen Ashkenazi. She wrote a whole book about the birth, the book of Ruth, along with Dr. Freimer Kensky. And can I have a volunteer to read this paragraph? Since I seem to be waxing incoherent.
I will if nobody else wants to.
Thank you, Krista.
I actually have this commentary. It's wonderful, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. The narrative pattern that typified the book of Ruth is that what one person wishes for another person comes to fruition principally through the actions of the well-wisher. Thus, although people frequently invoke God's intercession, it is they who actually intercede in setting things right. As Freimer Kensky observes, the characters in the book of Ruth themselves act to fulfill the blessing that they bestow on one another in God's name. Tamara Khan Ashkenazi from the JPS Bible Commentary for Ruth.
Thank you. Okay, so what is the point that she is making here? Where does this blessing? Where are these blessings coming from? Sort of what is the direct source? Paul?
So it sounds a little bit like what Bonnie was talking about, that that there's a partnership that's involved here, that there's a, to use other traditions, a channeling of divine through our own actions. So it's, asking for the intercession of the divine, and by doing that, sort of being the agent of the divine as well. Something, if one thing that I've been thinking throughout the evening so far is that there's a lot of when your heart is open, when you do this act, just like what Krista was saying at the very beginning, that you don't go in and decide you're going to clothe people no matter what they want to be clothed in, sort of grab them off the street, put clothes on them. You just approach them and find out what they need, right? And there's something about that being not doing the pro forma. It's not a performative action to show that you are really divine. You're the good guy because you're doing all this stuff, but really you're bringing to another human what they really need, and you're finding out what that is. So there's a lot of heart that's involved in that, and it seems to be that that's part of the opening the heart allows that to that connection to be made.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's very well. That's well said about opening the heart. Okay, well, we have a couple minutes where we can still do our breakout rooms. I have them set up here. And our prompt is sometimes, people talk about like when you're kind of in a funk, maybe try to do something for someone else. And I guess I wanted to talk about, when is it appropriate to do this? Is loving kindness an appropriate coping mechanism? Is it something that's, is there anything wrong with that? So those are kind of, that's the question. So I'm going to add this to the chat.
Greg, are you talking about when you are in a personal struggle or when you see somebody else in a personal struggle?
When you are in a personal struggle.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. Yeah, if someone else is in a personal struggle, then that's, that's a little more straightforward. But sometimes, the advice is, well, do something for someone else. And, I thought I would toss that up. So the rooms are open. So just click join room. Hey there, do you want to join your breakout room and have a conversation? You just click on the screen, join breakout room.
Yeah, I don't see the little the place to click to do that.
Oh, it looks like you're unassigned. Okay, I'm going to add you to the room. There you go.
Okay. Join.
And for those of you who are on streaming, thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm going to pause this. Hey everyone, welcome back. Nice to see you again. Would anyone care to share an insight that they had in the conversation?
Well, I'm always ready.
Okay. Go ahead, Joanne.
All right. So I think, we're talking about before about, actually doing something to reach out to other people. And I think that really helps when you're in a funk. I've been, in and out of a funk during this pandemic and being on lockdown, and now it's dark and it's cold and I can't stand. And I also had, I didn't discuss this, but I was having a financial meltdown last month. So I've been very careful about charitable giving because it's like, what, I can't really afford to do so much. But, I feel every time I see an ASPCA ad, I want to, anyway, feel guilty. But anyway, and then, reaching out I think it just takes you out of yourself and worrying about your own troubles and focusing on helping somebody else. I think it's a great thing to do. And you feel better.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to need to go speed round here a little bit. So we'll hear from from Shelley, and then from Carrie, and then we will close.
So I was with Hannah, and we didn't really get a chance to talk very quickly. I was talking with the other lady because she was busy, and at the very couple of last seconds, she was able to come on to tell us both that she had joined today because she was looking for love and kindness because her dad is in the hospital passing. And I thought, wow, you know, how amazing that we're having these discussions about helping people in grieving moments, and we're there right now for her. So I just wanted to give her a big hug and tell her that we're all thinking for her.
Thank you.
Nice.
Absolutely. And Hannah, I think you're on mute. If
The doctor had actually come in and was trying to talk to me about what they're doing next. So that was actually, I'm actually at the hospital. I'm doing the crazy thing of making this phone call while during this. So
Oh gosh.
yeah, this is I'm in the emergency room. Hi. So thank you for,
gosh.
it was really timely to hear about the idea of, you know, loving kindness and also reaching out. So yeah, it's good. It's like the best time to do it, really. You know, even if it's the most difficult sort of logistically.
yeah, well, sometimes I find that the Mussar trait I need is the one that just sort of shows up for me in the moment. So
Wow.
we're all sending you strength and support. And Carrie.
I just wanted to say that we talked about how doing an act of kindness makes you want to do it again, do another act of kindness, and it's just like a domino effect that you just keep wanting to do this. Maybe the other person will want to, you know, pass it on, type of thing.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Sort of paying it forward.
Yeah.
Great film. There's a great film called Pay It Forward.
It is, yeah.
It's a fabulous film.
Oh, good. I'll have to watch that. Pay it forward.
I'm going to paste in the chat instead of pulling up the slide because we're ready for a meditation. But just some ideas, again, the mantra that we shared last week, something that you can write down to use to help orient you towards loving kindness. There's some actions that you might want to take to pick one thing to help move yourself towards balance. And also just next week, we're going to be starting on the soul trait of truth. So for right now, please close your eyes. Relax into your seat. Take in a leisurely breath. And allow a leisurely exhale. And let's feel and acknowledge the act of Chesed that we all did today and coming to show up. These are busy, overscheduled times. And we've all chosen to do an act of kindness for ourselves and for others by engaging in this spiritual practice. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Wishing you a great week. A week of kindness for yourself and others. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
A good
shalom.
week, everyone. Feel well.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.